Screaming Chewy Show, your source of entertainment and overall fuckery. And it starts now. Alright, everyone, welcome back to another exciting episode of Screaming Chewy Show. And I'd like to welcome a special guest, author James Goy, writer of How to Attract Money Using Mind Power. How you doing, man?
I'm doing real good. How are you doing?
Doing great, doing great.
Great. It's good to be here. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too, man. Sounds exciting, man. You've been in over 300 podcasts or radio shows.
Right. Yeah. So I've been busy. They add up, you know. I've been at it for quite a while. I published my first book in 2007, and November of 2007, and just kind of been, you know, when anybody wants to talk about it, I'm ready to go.
Putting in that work, man.
Yeah. Right.
And what inspired you to write that book?
Well, when I first came out to California, I was 19 years old, so that's a long time ago. And I started finding my first books on metaphysics, mind power, law of attraction, positive thinking, just all of that kind of things, the spirituality and whatnot. And it really just gripped me, the subject, right from the beginning. And one of my greatest needs was money, because I didn't have any money, and when I could earn money, it was very little, and so I was always struggling. And so when I really came to realize that there's really something to this, because growing up, I never heard anything about this, that our minds actually affect our environment. They affect our lives. They don't just affect our own abilities and habits and what we do, but it actually goes out from us and has an effect on other people and events and circumstances. And when I really understood that, then that was the main way that I started to use mind power, was to help myself financially. And so it just developed that I really wanted to help other people, because, you know, I've read hundreds and hundreds of books over the years, and but it's kind of hard to do that. Most people aren't going to do that. And so I wanted to eventually, when I thought about it, I wanted to come up with just a very concise, usable, almost manual, so that people can learn, okay, attract money with mind power. Well, what's that mean, and how do you do it? And where they can actually just sit down, you know, in a few sittings or whatever, and really get the whole picture and understand. I quote 160 other books in my book, so it's very well researched. I want people to know I didn't just make this stuff up. This stuff's been around for hundreds and even thousands of years. It's in all of the spiritual teachings and religions. And so, but I'm very a spiritual person, so I'm very spiritually motivated. But I also realize that the old saying is true, that you can't teach a hungry man. And so I wanted my first book to help people financially. And now, of course, I've written 11 books now. A lot of them are in a much more spiritual vein. But, you know, I think that once people have their financial needs met, then they can open up more for spiritual matters and just their own mind capabilities. But when you're under pressure of daily survival because of finances, then that is really, you don't have a lot of mental energy for anything else. And so that's why, you know, I've written 11 books now. It's still the book I'm the best known for, and it's also still the book that I get the most interviews for. It's what people want to talk about, and especially now with everything that's going on, all the craziness in the world, especially, you know, financially, you know, not the least of which is financially. I think it's a very timely book still for that.
I love it, man. And I love that spirituality stuff, law of attraction. I always found that very interesting, in that, you know, just manifestation, you know, from just thinking about it, just one thought that energy you can make it real, you know?
Right. And the interesting thing is that everyone is doing it already, all the time. Everyone you know, everyone I know, everyone in the world, they're having thoughts, they're having feelings, they're having images within their mind, and they're speaking certain things that they think are true. And the average person doesn't understand that that's actually how you work mind power, by your thoughts, your feelings, the images in your mind, and the words that you speak. the problem is when you don't know about the process, then you get a mixed bag. You get some things you like, you get some things you don't like. Most people would change almost every area of their life. They're not happy with it. Most people are financially way less than what they would want to be able to exhibit and have. But it's a big part of it is because they don't know that it's their thoughts and feelings and the images in their words, and therefore it's unregulated, and it's just kind of a happenstance. Once you start to understand that that is the mechanism, those are the four basic tools that you use to work mind power, so that you can do what all of these great teachers have taught us. You just look in the Bible and it says, as a man thinketh, so is he. That's a very simple phrase. Or have the faith of a mustard seed and say for the mountain to move from here to there and it'll move. Well, that's all mind power. And you can find that in every corner of the human literature for thousands of years. And once you understand it, and in my book, I really bring it all down step by step and make it very simple, then people can start using mind power right now to improve their lives in all ways.
Awesome. And I think also people do it a lot in a very negative way. You know, you're driving that old car and you're like, don't break down, don't break down, don't break down. And it breaks down because
Right.
that's what you were thinking about, you know?
Yeah, because your subconscious mind does not understand a negative term like the word no. It hears break down. It doesn't hear the no. Like that doesn't really register because there's no picture that can be put with it. But break down, yeah, your mind can put a picture to that. Or people say, I hope I don't lose my job. Well, your subconscious mind hears lose my job. And then that's what it's going to start working toward. People say, I'm not good with money, or I'm stupid, or I'm always making mistakes. And they just are really speaking their existence, their personality, their habits, their circumstance. They're speaking everything into existence, because we talked about thoughts, feelings, and images, but it's really the words that empower all of that, because words are a physical vibration in this world, and it actually gives a lot more power and focuses these other things. And so when you start speaking things, then you get them a lot quicker. And most people are speaking a lot of things they don't want. When you understand it and turn it around, then you can start speaking a lot of things you do want. But let me open up my book here. Let's see, I have a chapter on speak as if. And so I have, I have 8 quotes in every chapter. So in this one here, let's see. If we listen to the words of the failure multitude, we will soon learn that by their words they are justified and condemned. And that's from a book by Julia Seaton called The Science of Success from 1914. And what she's basically saying is, what you say is what you're going to get. Here's another interesting little book. It's called Health and Wealth from Within. It was written in 1909 or published, William E. Town. And words constitute a point of focus for creative energy. So, we're doing this interview and people are listening. If all they get is that, when I'm talking, I'm actually putting forces into play that are going to come back to either haunt me or bless me. If that's all they got from this whole interview, to start speaking differently, they could transform their whole lives with that one technique. But then there's many others. If I look in my table of contents, and we can talk about any of these if we want to, but desire, belief, expectancy, money mindset, money goals, think end results. You think about what you want, not about what you don't want. Think and feel as if, speak as if, which is just basically always speaking as if the things you want to come about and be true either are now or will be true. And then you have other act as if, which is a big one. You start acting now as if. In other words, if you're having a lot of money, but you are afraid to spend any money, like, you have the money in your pocket, it's a reasonable expense, but you're in the grocery store and you say, avocado's $2. I can't afford that. Well, sure you can. You got $60 in your pocket. You'll have a job. You got gas in the car. But people have this mindset that they can't afford things. And so that's a simple example. If you're acting as if you would always have enough money, and there's more money coming in, and you would buy the avocado if that's what you want. And then other like affirmation, visualization, intuition. You know, there's I got 20 chapters in here, but each one is an important part of the puzzle. But as with the example of speaking as if and watching how you talk, it shows that any one of these techniques can transform your life. Just one technique. But
Nice.
yes, but the fact that the one of the reasons that's so is because you're never really doing just one technique. See, if I'm speaking, trying to speak things the way I want them to be, well, I'm creating images in my mind. Automatically, I'm creating the appropriate thoughts. I'm having positive emotions based on I'm seeing these, positive desires that I'd like to have. So, and I could go through that with any one of these. If you're doing any one, you inadvertently are doing others as well. And that's why it's so powerful, because it's very synergistic. Yeah.
Wow. I never thought about that. Wow. I didn't know there was so much to it. Wow.
Right. There's a lot to it, but when you boil it all down, it comes down to very simple. There's lots of techniques and there's lots of, things to understand. But if all a person understood was thoughts, feelings, images, and words, and they just try to have all that be positive and focused on what they want, they could, transform their lives. But then there's other things that, they help a lot. And another one would be that people don't think about really, but it would be environment. And if you get into even quantum physics, but certainly spirituality, metaphysics, we start to understand that our entire environment, and that includes where we work, where we hang out, our home, everything. The inside of our car is an environment that we spend a lot of time in. That has really come out of our minds. We have created that or attracted that or modified these environments according to what's going on inside our minds. So that's one understanding, that what we are thinking, what's going on inside of us is creating what's going on outside of us. There's another part of this that most people they kind of overlook it, and that is that the outside is also affecting the inside. So it's a closed loop. What we think attracts our environment, but then our environment reinforces what we're thinking. And so an easy example is if a person's house is very disorganized, stuff all over, you can never find anything, well, that's their mind. Their mind is disorganized. Now, if you start to organize your thoughts more clearly, then you'll find yourself just automatically starting to organize your house without even thinking about it. But
Wow.
here's the part that's really amazing is if you start organizing your house, your thoughts will start becoming more organized without even thinking about it, because one feeds the other and they're a reflection of each other. So that's an example of one of the things in the book here that most people never think of, but that's extremely powerful and so simple to, anyone can go into their kitchen right now, open up one of the drawers that's a mess, maybe the silverware drawer, but you got rubber bands in there and you got all this stuff that you never use. And plus it's dusty, and it hasn't been cleaned. And you clean that one drawer. Like if somebody watching this just goes in their kitchen or wherever, clean out one drawer, their bedroom, they actually have cleaned up a part of their mind. They've made their mind a little more streamlined, a little more efficient, a little more, for a certain operational usage. And that actually has had a positive mental effect. So some people say, oh, I have a hard time changing my thoughts. All right, well then go and just clean up a drawer, because that's easy. Anybody can do it. And by doing that, you're cleaning up your mind. You're organizing your mind just a little better. And you can work it from either end. And I say work it from both ends. Organize your thoughts more, but also get your house organized, and each one feeds the other. And before you know it, it becomes normal for you to have a streamlined environment, whether it's at work or in the glove compartment of your car or whatever, where everything serves a purpose and aids you in being more focused and more powerful in what you're trying to accomplish in life.
That makes a lot of sense. I've heard that if you clean your room, that you'll sleep better. That's what I heard. Or
Right,
you'll
right,
be less stressed. And
right.
that makes sense that you're organizing your mind. So, that makes sense why you could sleep better, think better,
Exactly.
less stress.
Yeah, some people will tell you to if possible, not everybody has the space, but if possible, try to have your bedroom be your bedroom for the purpose of sleeping. Like a lot of people have a desk in there and they do all their office work, and maybe they don't, you might be in a studio, it's all in one. But if you have the option of having a space to sleep, even if you put a little room divider down the middle of a room and you got your sleeping space on one side and you're working on the other, it does help to you to sleep better and to be more creative and all of that. Yeah.
That's smart. Separate it. Just
Right.
strictly sleeping. I like it.
Right. Right. And not everybody has the space. Some people have a big place and they can have an office in one room, a bedroom in another room, and exercise in another room. You work with what you have to work with, but there's always ways to make it better than what it is, as far as streamlining and having a more purposeful environment. Yeah.
Wow. So it's just little things like that people don't think about that could
Right.
just better your life so much.
Right. Right. And the more you start to understand how your mind does work, um, and the more you start to do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, think a little better, start thinking about the results you want, you don't want, watch your words, and it all just feeds each other. And it's almost imperceptible. Like you don't even realize the massive changes that are going on inside of you from these tiny little things, because it's the little things that add up to the whole, which is your life. But it's a million little things. And when you do one, you're setting dominoes in effect. You're setting the dominoes falling for all these other areas. And so it's really just about having an understanding of mind power, and then starting to focus more in that direction, getting clear on what it is you want, because most people don't know what they want. Um, because a big part of it is they don't think they can get it. Like people think, oh, I'd love to win the lottery. And then they have all these weird fantasies like, oh, I'd buy a yacht and I do this. Well, they don't understand the yacht's going to cost them $1 million a year just for maintenance. Like they don't think about the practicality, the
Oh,
reality.
wow.
Oh, if I won $5 million, I'd buy a $4 million mansion. Yeah, well, you know how much the taxes are going to be on that every year, and your $1 million isn't going to last very long that you save. They don't think practically. So you start to think, but I also talk in my book about frugality and not being wasteful. And just because someone has, it doesn't matter how much money you have, you don't have to live like you have that much money. And actually, if you live like you always live like you have less than you have, then you'll always have more money. And what's going on right now in the economy and whatnot, I mean, I just was listening to something yesterday that said, I guess it was supposedly the economy was doing very well before the pandemic. Okay, well, that's debatable because there wasn't a strong foundation under it to begin with, but everybody was, a lot of people are work, the unemployment low, this and that. But come to find out that half to 3/4 of the people in the United States were actually living paycheck to paycheck.
Yep.
Half to 3/4, and that's in a good economy.
That's why everybody panicked with the whole
That's
coronavirus.
why everybody had to panic, because there was no forethought, there's no preparation. Everyone is stretched out on credit. They want to drive nobody asks how much is that car. They ask how much is the payment, right? And if they can make the payment, then they take the car. And everyone is completely stretched out, and everything is okay as long as nothing changes, as long as they don't lose their job or get a reduction in pay or whatever. But as soon
Very
as
true.
as soon as the littlest thing happens, it's almost game over. There's people are ending up homeless now, and there's just because they're trying to look like they have more than they have. Because when you're on credit, then you're presenting a picture and you're living a life that you can't actually afford. You're having to borrow, and you're signing away your future. And when it comes to any faltering in your income, it all falls apart. And so this is actually a good thing in a lot of ways, because it's teaching a lot of people that that's really not the way to live. You want to live below your means. You want to be comfortable, but I don't care if you have, $50 million in the bank. You don't live like you have 50 million. People live in, $10 million mansions, and drive Maseratis and whatnot. And guess what? They're in debt,
Big time.
right? But they have a business, or they're a CEO or whatever, and they make really good money. Maybe they make $1.5 million a year. Well, look at all the big businesses now that are just going under. Forget even the small mom and pops. A lot of those won't be coming back. They keep getting hammered down. First they get closed for several months, and then, okay, we'll let you open, but only 50% capacity, like with restaurants or whatever. And by the way, only 20% of your customers are comfortable yet to even come back out because they're afraid of the virus. And oh, by the way, now we have to retract and close down, like especially here in California. Now we got to close you down again.
Same here in Arizona.
Right,
We're closed down again.
Right. And so it's people are just not prepared for that. So, but the techniques I teach, you can attract money, you can attract what you want and you need, but I also teach people to be very respectful of money. Like if I turn to chapter 14, laws of money, and money goes where it flows. So circulating money does help to attract money. Money goes where it's welcome. So you want to be, in other words, if you see a penny on the ground, some people can't be bothered to pick it up. I always pick a penny up. I would never, because I'm using my mind power to attract money from the universe. And there's a free penny in front of me that the universe has put. I'm not going to say, oh, that's only a penny. Because what people don't understand is that there's no difference in kind between a penny and $1 million. It's the same exact thing, only one is a greater degree. And if you're trying to attract more, then you want to accept everything that comes in. Money goes where it's appreciated. A lot of people aren't grateful for the money they have. Money goes where it's respected. So, you pay your bills on time, you're frugal, you don't waste money, you never waste money on anything. I mean, you can spend, and people have $1 million to throw a party, okay, like a wedding for your daughter because you're an oil sheik. That's fine. You're not wasting money. It's all being spent. A lot of people are supporting their families from that, but you don't want to be wasteful. And money goes where it's given out from. So you want to be, give back part of what you get, whether you're handing a homeless person $1 or whether you give to your church or whatever it is. But never to be wasteful. That's a big one. So,
which is what most people do. They're wasteful.
Right. They're wasteful. Everything is throwaway, and people just, I'm always surprised. I don't know why I'm still surprised, but you'll be watching a movie or a TV show, and the people are having dinner or whatever, and then they go after dinner and they take the plates over to the trash can and they scrape everything off. And I'm like, oh my God, we would have never done that. Like growing up,
Oh
like
yeah.
you don't waste one bite of food, it's disrespectful. And even if you can afford to, why,
That's how I am. That's why I'm fat, I think.
yeah,
Now,
because you don't waste anything, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And
So,
back to how you were saying how people don't spend money wisely, how they're living paycheck to paycheck.
right,
I've heard so many people complain, "Oh, I'm broke. Oh, I never have money," but they have $1,000 phone,
right,
have a newer car. They're in debt
right,
constantly. And I make okay money, but I drive a 99 GMC Yukon, and
right,
people are like, "Hey, you make good money. Why don't you get a new car?" I'm like, "And be in debt? Fuck that."
right.
I'm like, I
Yeah,
love it's a nice car, it's in good condition. I don't need a new car. But
right,
people are constantly buying new things just to impress others.
right.
We're constantly going in debt just to look cooler or wealthier than they are.
Yeah, and the weird thing is that if you don't, it's like people come to you and say, well, how come you're not driving a nicer truck? You can afford it. Like you're supposed to do it. Like,
Yeah.
what's wrong? What's wrong here,
And I'm like, fuck that.
Right. Yeah, that's the mindset. But yeah, frugality is a big one. Preparedness, like people, um, they were totally unprepared. We saw the panic at the grocery stores and whatnot. I mean, people have no food in their house. I mean, we live on a just-in-time inventory where the food's brought in every day, and if the slightest thing, little thing goes wrong. I mean, even as a kid growing up in New Jersey, and they would announce a blizzard coming on the news, and in hours the shelves are just wiped out. And I'm thinking, didn't you have any food in the house already? Like it's 3 day, it's a 3 day blizzard. And then, and people just panic because they don't have the basic supplies. So,
Or the toilet paper.
yeah, that's a big one. I mean, who's gonna, have enough, confidence in the supply chain to have 2 rolls of toilet paper in your house,
And people were fighting for it,
Yeah,
it was like Black Friday,
right,
and I even I usually get bottled water because I just have tap water or bottled water. I
right.
don't have like a water cooler, and that was getting hard to find. That was like toilet paper, and
Right.
I had found one case at a local little store around here, Family Dollar. I found a case, and the lady, she was telling me that people were fighting because I guess they were waiting in line and they were fighting, complaining, like, and then the people working there, the cash register, are stressed out. Everybody's screaming at them.
Yeah,
And then the delivery truck comes, and then she went out to the back, and people were trying to bribe the truck driver. Like, yo, I'll give you $10 extra if you give me toilet paper or
right.
water, or and she's like, back off. So she had to close the store, tell everybody to leave, and
Right.
let the guy bring in the inventory because people were crazy.
Right. Right. So I think that good comes of everything. And so I hope that a lot of people have and are taking this as a wake-up call that they should live below their means. They should, put something aside for a rainy day. They shouldn't try to impress um, people, who don't even hardly notice you anyway. You don't like them anyway, uh, and drive a car that you like, and if you've got issues where you've got self-esteem issues, that's another part of it. People, they don't feel whole within themselves, and they have inferiority feelings or whatever, and so they're always trying to bolster that up with new cars and the biggest house they can afford and whatnot. And that'd be okay if they actually could afford it, but they can't. Most people can't.
Hmm.
um, I remember when I was young, and with my mother, I went over some friend of hers house or whatever, and he had this great big huge house. Like, for me, I've never seen anything like it, like 8 rooms or something. Like, we lived in, a couple of rooms, 3 rooms or something. We lived in a two family house when I was really young. On the first floor we were, and people were on the second floor. I saw this great big house, and I said, wow, this guy must be really rich, as we're walking up the driveway. My mother said, no, not necessarily. He's just, owes the bank for the house. He's making payments. And to me, I thought, oh, wow, you can have something like this and not have any money. I'm like, how does that work? I didn't know how that worked, Now I know how it works, and it's called credit. But things are changing now. Things are going to be different. The economy is the damage being done to the economy right now. Most people do not really fathom it. It is worse than we think, and it's going to last longer. The ramifications of it. Um, uh, and so that's why, what I teach in this book and the other books is so important, because things have changed. There is a new normal, even though it hasn't normalized. But things are not going to be like they were before anytime soon. And so people need to start to understand that. See, before, when things are going good and you have a job, you're making money, you don't need to know anything about mind power, right? You're making however much money every week, and you know what your payments are on your car and your rent or your mortgage. And but as soon as anything changes and things get harder, that's when the people that understand mind power and the law of attraction have the real advantage, because they can still do the same things that got them to where they were, because they used mind power. But if people didn't consciously do it, then they don't know how to do it. And so they sink. They say, the rising tide lifts all boats, but the receding tide also drags all the boats down with it when it comes down.
Oh, wow.
And
That's deep.
yeah. So it's all about, in the end, it's about your mind. And so that's what people need to start getting back to right now. What's important in life, being frugal, looking ahead, being prepared for the unexpected, and using your mind in positive ways to help attract abundance to you, so that you can spare yourself a lot of the suffering and hardship that's a lot of people. This is just still the beginning of what's going to come around.
Yeah,
And
it's gonna be bad.
yeah. So, and my newest book is called The New Normal, by the way.
Oh,
And
nice.
yeah, it's The New Normal. I can hold it up here. A spiritual, metaphysical, and common sense take on the 2020 coronavirus emergency and its after effects. And so in the book, in the beginning, it's talks really about the nature of reality itself, that, as the mystics have always said, that life is an illusion. In quantum physics, and even just, physics, we understand that everything is really energy and matter, they are interchangeable, and it has to do with consciousness is the driving force behind it, and we can focus consciousness. So it helps people to understand that this is no better or worse than anything else that happens or has ever happened, but we can get a spiritual perspective on it. But also in the book, I talk about, preparedness and becoming more spiritual as a form really of self-defense. Because when we become more spiritual and we understand, we have a clearer perception of what's real, then we can actually wield more power to make things the way we want it to be. But we can also protect ourselves from a lot of the negative things. And that could be just exerting mind power for specific end results, but it can also be other things that are a little less, a little harder to put your direct finger on, such as divine intervention. There are forces in the universe that will, and there's so many stories out there in books, and thousands and new ones every single day, of somebody was drowning and they felt something, take a hold of them and pull them towards the shore.
Mm-hmm.
One I remember, the guy crashed a small plane, and he was inside the cockpit, and the entire plane was in flames, except for the little area around him. And he walked, and I've had experiences, motorcycle accident, people trying to pull guns on me a couple of times.
Holy shit.
Where this force came in, and just it's a combination of, see, most people look at divine intervention as like God or some outside force coming in to help you, and it does indeed look like that. But it's also an element of mind power, and when you get into a deep understanding of metaphysics, spirituality, quantum physics, you start to understand that we're really all part of one energy field, and so nothing can really happen to me or for me without me participating. So, we participate in all of that, even if it's an unconscious level that we don't understand we're doing it. But a lot of times we can look back and see things more for what they were. So, but all of this, if anybody right now is not deeply concerned with what's going on, then they're not paying attention. And another point I make in the book is that I want people to start seeking out alternate sources of information, right? Because if all you're doing is listening to the mainstream media right now about the economy and about the virus and all this, then you are sorely underinformed at best, and really misinformed.
Big time.
Yeah, because you're on YouTube, right? You know that there's so much information out there, so many other points of view, and a lot of people coming forth that are saying things other than what we're hearing.
Mm-hmm.
And these are people that are very, have positions of respect. They're doctors in some cases or whatever, and they actually have more to lose than to gain by coming forth and saying certain things. And so I don't get into all of the, the conspiracy angle of it all. I mean, I have my own beliefs, but I don't really share those because it's beside the point. What I share is the motivation or just the heads up to people that you need to do your research and get on there and listen to all these other people and see what they're saying. And a lot of what the little guys are saying, these far-flung, fringe people that are coming out of the woodwork or whatever. I mean, I say coming out of the woodwork, a lot of them have had platforms for many years, even decades. And a lot of what they've been talking about for decades is even coming about now. And so they have more credibility to me. But in the book, I don't go into what exactly I think is going on or why. I go into the fact that I do say that I don't believe the standard story that most people believe, and that I encourage other people to do their own research.
Very smart. Because
Yeah.
I tell people like maybe December or when the virus we first started hearing about it,
Right.
the experts in China were saying, oh, it spreads through your dogs. Your dogs can get it too. So they
Right.
were killing all of their dogs.
Right.
And then they're like, oh, you know what? Dogs can't get it. And then they say, oh, it spreads through saliva. And then now it's airborne. It could get in your eyeballs. So it's
Right.
like what the experts are saying. It's all over the place.
It changes. We were in the beginning. We were encouraged not to wear masks. Then
Yes.
all of a sudden, now we're supposed to wear masks. And oh, by the way, I'll mention, we talked about it before the show, but The New Normal is one of the books that is free, that I have for free on Amazon Kindle.
Nice.
So yeah, and I have 2 other books and three others coming down the line pretty soon here that'll be free. But if anybody wants to read that, and I encourage everybody to read The New Normal for sure, it's free on Kindle. You just go there and download it. If you don't have a Kindle reader, you get the free Kindle app. You can download it right there for your computer. I have it on my computer. I don't have a Kindle reader. And then you can download the book for free, and you can actually read this book in one sitting. And the way this book came about was very interesting because from when I was inspired to write this book, because I knew I wanted to say something about what's going on, but I really didn't know what could I say, because I didn't know how to. It's just hard to put spiritual principles and things into and a different point of view that people who already think they know, they're really not open. But the long and short of it is, from when I actually sat down to start writing it, 21 days later, it was actually in print on Amazon, like a book
Wow.
from sitting down and starting it to 20. I mean, that's never happened for me. I've written books in short times, but then there's a lot of proofreading and putting it aside and just all this process. And so 3 weeks later, I look back and I'm like, where the heck did that come from? It came out of nowhere, and then there it is. And then every once in a while, like I think about a week ago, I sat down and read it again. You can read it in one sitting. It's a small book. And I'm like, let me make sure I still like this, because I don't even know what I said, And I read it.
Came out so fast.
Yeah, and then every time I read it, I'm like, at the end, I'm relieved. I'm like, oh, all right, that's a good book. That makes a lot of sense. And so that's one of the books that I made for free on Amazon. I have no plans on putting a price on it. I'm just going to leave it out there, and anybody who
Nice.
wants to read it can read it. Yeah.
Free knowledge. Can't beat that.
Right.
And going back to that divine intervention, I always wondered, your mind power. I think a lot of people give that credit to God. I'm not saying God don't exist, but I'm saying a lot of your own mind power that you have, and you might not be aware of, but people give that power towards God. Oh, thank God, God gave me this job. It's like, well, maybe you worked your ass off and developed skills, and you're consistent or worked hard, whatever you did, but you deserve that job. But people are like, God got me this job. It's like, give yourself some credit sometimes,
Right. I think there's a lot of confusion about God, or the concept of God.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a book. I'll pull it up here real quick. but it's called The God Function. And the subtitle is A Spiritual Journey into Cosmic Consciousness for Attracting Abundance, Controlling Circumstances, and Manifesting Miracles. And so that's called The God Function. And basically in the book, I talk about how some people believe in God and some people don't. And people who believe in God, some people think it's like the white bearded guy on the throne. And other people think, if they're more metaphysically minded, God is in all things everywhere, including all people. And I make the point that, all of that sounds good. We can debate it forever. Is God an individual being, or is he in all things? Does he exist or does he not exist? But we can debate that forever. But what really is beyond debate, I think, is the concept, I call it the God function. And that is that there does indeed seem to be, and demonstrably and observably is, a function within the universe, within this energy we're in, that acts as God is said and thought to act by people who believe in God. In other words, they've even done studies where, people pray for people in this half of the hospital and not the other half. And the people they pray for on this half of the hospital, they have quicker healing rates and lower mortality and all of this. If you do bad things, you bring bad around to yourself. So all of the things that have been attributed to God actually can be observed and have been observed by brilliant minds over thousands of years and reported. And we talk about divine intervention. I've had experiences myself which are beyond, anything that can be explained by, normal science and the known laws of nature and whatnot. So I think that the function is there, and I think that we can get beyond the need to have to say, well, it's God, and here's what God looks like, and here's how God is. Because in the book, I make the point that, we're just human beings with these tiny little human brains, this little mass of tissue that, by the way, has all these pollutants from our food and our water and our air going through it. Like it's not even a clean physiological mechanism. And are we really? It might be the height of human, folly and arrogance to think that we can actually describe God. Like, I know what God is. Here it is, and I'm going to go all over the world and try to convert everybody to what I think.
Very true.
I'm just a human person, and if we understand really the power of the human mind, you can actually make a case for, we say, whether is God a personal being or an impersonal everything. We can actually make a case for both, because the human mind, just the human mind, is so powerful that if we started to have these stories about a personal God, there may actually be a creation there, call it a thought form. We may actually have created that personal God through human thought. It may have started out as impersonal. We've made something personalized out of it, something that actually does know us and watch over us and whatnot. But that does not negate the fact is there as well, which is God in everyone. We are each God personified in a sense. And so I think this is a book on the back here. I say this just might be the most original and thought-provoking book on God, quote unquote, God, ever written. And I really, I believe that, because it gets beyond theory and just that, listen, here's how things work. It's observable. And when we understand how those things work, we can work with it and we can get the benefits that we want while blessing everyone in the process, and no one has to lose. And that's what I call the God function.
I love it, because I think people just are so set in their ways. And then, of course, there's, indoctrination. And so people are always stuck in their religion, and they're always like, I'm right, you're wrong. My religion's the way, yours is not. It's
Right.
like, well, who are you to say that? Like, I like to tell people that, they go around talking shit about other religions. And I'm like, who's to say yours is better than theirs? Like,
Right.
if I don't understand it.
it separates people more than anything. It brings people together within each belief system, but by definition, it has to exclude everyone else on the entire planet.
Exactly.
And it's kind of like an arrogance where people, they look down on everyone else, like, I know the truth, you know, and if you're not,
Exactly.
yeah, if you're not this religion or that religion, then I don't like you, I can't trust you, you're not a part of my circle, and
Or you're not worthy, you
yeah,
know.
right, you're going to hell.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
you know. So yeah, so I think that it's healthy to, I think that in the beginning, like, of, you know, there's many levels of consciousness on the planet, and I think that water seeks its own level. So every level of consciousness finds a vibration, a belief system, a group of people that it can kind of vibrate with and be comfortable with. And so I think if people they're in a certain religion or teaching, and it could be a spiritual teaching where you've got a guru, you know, or some teacher that's supposed to be, you know, God incarnate. And a lot of these have been cults, actually. They're not healthy, but you know,
Hmm.
I was in what, I won't tell the name of it, but I was in what many people have come to recognize as being a cult, and would say as a cult, in my early 20s. And I came out of it so much more empowered that I would never let anything like that happen again, that I would never look outside of myself for spiritual understanding or advancement again. I mean, so it was, you would say, well, that was a negative thing. You were under this program, you were in a cult, you know, and I say, no, it's the most powerful thing that could have happened to me. And I'm happy that it happened when I was so young, because then I got freed up to be my own captain of my own spiritual ship. And so I look at the religions and things, and I think, well, they believe in God, they believe in a higher power, which there is one. There's a higher power that at least is above what we know ourselves to be, even if it's us. And so they try to do good, right? They have charities through the church, they give food or whatever it is, and at least they come together on Sundays, and they all try to be nice. Now, a lot of them go back out into the world for the next week, and they're, you know, shysters, you know, they're car mechanics that are lying to everyone, or they're lawyers
Big
that,
time.
yeah, and then they come, but at least it's something. It's better than nothing. So I look at everything. I don't judge anything as good or bad, even the beliefs about God or no God or anything else. Everything has its place. Water seeks its own level. Consciousness always resonates with like consciousness, and it's all good. It's all good. It's all in divine order. That's a new book of mine. The next book of mine I publish is on divine order. And it's basically the concept that no matter how things look, it's all working for the best. And one example is if someone loses a job and then they have a chance meeting with an old friend, and through that they get a new job, but it's a better job. They make more money, they like it more, it's closer to their house. I mean, anything you can think of, it's better. And so people, the average person, if they believe in divine order, they would say, oh, well, that was great because there was a problem. The guy lost his job, and then divine order came in and did all of this, and now he has the perfect job he never could have imagined. But we have to look take one step back and look one level deeper. He's got this wonderful, perfect, beautiful job that he couldn't have even imagined. It's better in every way than the other job. And guess what? He never would have had it if he didn't lose the other job. So we actually can see that losing the job was also in divine order. That's the part that people don't see. They think, oh, it's terrible, I lost my job. How many times have you heard people say, talking about something that happened to them in the past, and they say, at the time, I thought it was the worst thing that ever could happen to me.
Oh yeah.
Right? But it turned out to be the best thing because, you know, yes, she divorced me, but now I found the real love of my life. Or, you know, I lost that job, but then I found my true calling. And I want people to know that it's all in divine order, the good and the bad. And to start when you lose the job, or then you're saying, oh, this is great. This is in divine order. There's something better for me. And not always just be able to look back in hindsight and say, oh yeah, that was great. But know when you're going through it that this too is good. And it's going to lead to something better. And when you're adding your mind and your focus to that, of course, it would come about even quicker. There'd be less suffering involved because so much of our suffering as human beings is self-inflicted, and most of it is mental.
All
We just
your stress and anxiety.
exactly. And if we start looking at everything as in divine order, which I believe it really is, all of that stress, I mean, so much of the stress, the uncertainty, the fear, it just melts away because you know that everything's always been okay. It's going to continue to be okay, and then it's going to get even better.
Yep. You know, sometimes I've had some bad days and I think to myself, you know what? I'm alive. So I have tomorrow.
Right.
I have a chance to get better, you know.
Right.
And sometimes I've had anxiety, and you know, you have these thoughts that are maybe don't even make sense, but you're stressed about little things, or and then when you get over, you're like, why the fuck was I stressed about that? Like, you know, like, but
It seems inconsequential when you look back at it. Yeah.
uh-huh. And
Right.
I'm like, why was I worried about that? You know, it all turned out to be good. I worried for nothing. You
Right.
know, sometimes I'll get home and I'm like, fuck, man, did I fuck up at work and not realize it? You know, or just stupid shit like that. And I'm like, dude, just forget about it. You deal
Yeah.
with it when you get to work tomorrow, you know, and nothing happens, you know.
Right. Or why did I say this? Or why did I say that? And I wonder what they think. And did they misunderstand me? Is that person mad at me now? What's that person think of me? I mean, we got this stuff, you know, we can have it going through our minds all the time. And it takes all your mental energy. Um, and half the time or more, we're probably wrong. Whatever we're thinking or worrying about, sometimes, sure, yeah, we said something stupid and they think we're an ass. But most of the time, it's not nearly as bad as what we're thinking, you know?
Hmm.
So
We're
just,
making up our own problems.
right, right. Yep. And so by the same token, we make up um, our own wonderful scenarios,
That's
you
true.
know. And but when we start to think about the divine order aspect of it, we were just talking about, then you can look back and you say, you know what? Yeah, what I said in that meeting today, that was stupid. But it's in divine order somehow. Who knows? Maybe people are going to have empathy for me now, or they're not going to be so. If you're the boss, well, they won't be so intimidated now. They'll see I'm human too. I mean, there's good that comes from everything. When you look for the good, then you find it more readily. Yeah,
Very true.
yeah,
I love it, man. And this whole I'm not too familiar with quantum physics, but I've seen a couple of videos of, you know, like the hologram theory,
right,
like how, you know, everything's just a simulation that your brain is making, basically,
right,
right? Your
right,
senses, it's just what your brain's telling you.
right,
And then, you know, there's always that wonder, like, what if our brains were more capable? How would that change reality, right?
right,
Because we can only see and remember so much of what we see every day. Imagine we could see more, you know, like some animals seeing UV light, you know. Imagine we could do that. It'd be a whole different world.
right, right. And I do think that that reality is not what it appears to be at all. And when you look into quantum physics, you really start to see that it's validating what the mystics have been saying for thousands of years without the science behind it. But now we have the science behind it, that your mind affects reality, that everything is energy. And really, when you start looking at it, there's nothing actually there. It is like a hologram, and it's all consciousness directed, and it comes about through observation. And the mystics will also bear this out, as well as the quantum physics, which is the concept that the observer and the observed are not separate. In other words, we're not separate from what we're looking at. That's a part of us.
Nice.
We're in that energy. And that's one of the reasons, to me, it explains why we can have so much influence over what we observe. And in quantum physics, they know that, you know, depending on how they set up an experiment, it's kind of like what you look for is what you find. And if you expand that out, we can make a case for the fact that modern science is not discovering reality, or even, you know, geology or whatever is not actually discovering the past history of the planet or anything, because there's another concept in there that basically is the concept of time. The time is an illusion. If that's true, then there's no past or future. Um, Everything is in the ever-present moment. And so when we start to, look at all of that, and we start to understand that it is, there's a book I read many years ago that helped me, and it was called The Holographic Universe
Oh,
by
wow.
Talbot. And he basically, I haven't read the book in years. I still have it. I have a lot of books. Um, but basically that reality of what we think is reality is nothing like that. It is a hologram. It is a mental construct. And we ourselves are basically projections. Um,
Wow.
you know how Jim Carrey was going around for a while saying how he didn't exist?
Yeah.
All right. Well, he's tapping into that. I'm like, yeah, great. Everybody's looking at him like, sideways, because they don't understand that it's a very profound spiritual understanding that Jim Carrey, James Goy Jr., we don't exist as that person. We're not an individual like we think we are. We're not our history. We're not even actually physical. There is no physical. If you look deep enough into your own body with a powerful enough microscope, you'll see the atoms and molecules. They're as far away from each other as the planets are in the solar system. There's nothing solid. And so he really tapped into something there.
And then that space in between the molecules is the same space in outer space, you know?
Right, right. And then the deeper you look in that, there's the concept in quantum physics that reality is actually non-local, which means there is no place, there is no distance, like 1,000 light years. It means nothing. Every point in creation is touching every other point in creation. That's why you ever hear of the butterfly effect?
Oh,
And
yes.
a butterfly can flap its wings and there's a tsunami on the other side of the planet. It's the basic understanding that everything affects everything. And so the deeper you go into trying to understand consciousness, the more you realize that why we have such a hard time. Because if you start talking about there's no distance, there's no time, there's no place, there's no forward or back, or past or future, there's no other side of the planet, but everything is just a frame of reference. It's just a mental construct of trying to understand something, but in the process, everything we think we're understanding is not even there. So the deeper you get into it, the more you can understand why the average person will have such a hard time with it. And that's because it goes against everything that our physical senses tell us. But we only have these few physical senses. And then of course we have our extrasensory perception, but we're only tuned into a certain frequency band. And therefore we think everything outside of that is like doesn't exist. Like we can't fathom it because we can't experience it. And what if everything we experience is not real, and the things that we can't experience because they're beyond our human perception, that's where reality lies. And so when you start to stretch your mind out, I like to think of it as stretching your mind out to that point. When we stretch our human mind to a certain point, it can only go so far because it's a human mind, it has built-in limitations. But if we stretch our human mind enough, then we rise above it, because there's another part of us, our mind, that's not contained within the physiological functions of the human brain. And so from there, we can understand everything I'm saying, like the concept of no time, the concept of non-locality, the concept of the observer and the observed not being separate, of just the oneness of consciousness. All of that makes perfect sense. I mean, I just live it and breathe it. But I'm not doing that from my physical brain, even though my physical brain has been indoctrinated into that belief. But from my human mind, that's a belief I have. But from the higher mind, it's the knowing that I have.
You got to go beyond those physical limits that have been indoctrinated, like, oh no, you can't do this, you can't do that.
right.
It's like, well, who says you can't? You know?
There's nothing we can't do as individuals or as a planet. If we actually put our minds to it, and enough people did, for instance, just as an example, we could make, you know how there's all this plastic out in the ocean, right?
Hmm.
Just huge. We can make that disappear. It's only energy. It's only a thought. It's not, we can make places that have become radioactive, non-radioactive. Or we can make ourselves as human physical beings impervious to the effects of radiation. I mean, there's nothing that we can't do. But the good thing is that on our individual lives, we have extreme level of power. On the worldwide scale, it's not likely that one person could say, okay, I'm going to banish all the plastic from, it's just going to return to the clean, pure energy of consciousness. One person's probably not going to pull that off. But a number of people, if there were enough people, and I'm just using that as one example, that you'd look the next day and that, you know, just like tumors disappear. When I saw a video one time on YouTube where there was these 3 healers in the room with a cancer patient who had a tumor. And you also see the screen where they, I don't know if it's MRI or which one it would have been, but where you see the tumor on the screen, on the monitor,
Hmm.
and you have these 3 holy men or whatever they were, healers, and you actually saw that thing shrinking on the
Wow.
monitor. Well, you could do the same thing with the plastic in the ocean, just as one other example. It's all everything is consciousness, everything is energy. There is no real physicality or materiality. And when we understand that, then we can use consciousness to mold consciousness. We can use focus and directed and purposeful energy to mold and govern energy. And that's basically the picture of life that we see. We can change the whole thing. If enough people knew how, we could change it on a planetary scale.
You just have to believe.
You have to believe, and you have to figure out what it is you do want things to look like, and then that's what you program into the hologram. It's like a computer program. You put that in, and that's the picture you'll get back out.
Like I've heard stories about monks. They go up in the mountains to go meditate. You know, they'll sit in a circle and meditate, and the snow around them will start to melt just in that circle that they're in. You know, just that
Right,
pure energy.
right,
You know, and a lot of people don't understand. Everything's just vibrations and frequency. You know.
right, right. And you know how there's certain people that you get around them and you just don't feel good. Or it could be a friend, you spend some time, but afterwards you're always like, oh man, you know, life sucks. But then there's other people you get around and they just lift you just by their very presence. I know someone's very close to me who people just flock to her in public, or the places she goes, the stores and stuff, people that work there. Oh, thank you for coming, like thanking her for coming. You're always, you know, we always feel so good when you come to the store. People even feeling better physically with physical conditions around her. It's a high spiritual energy. And then there's other people who you just feel, you know, you feel down. You feel negative, and well, you're picking up that person's vibrations. So everything is energy. We all vibrate at different levels. And the way I like to try to explain it is, let's say you have a little cabin in the woods, and it's in the winter, and you've got the fireplace going, so you have it nice and heated up. Outside, it's very, very cold. So when you open the door, if you leave it open, you got the heat rushing in and the cold rushing out, and what they're trying to do is equalize. Well, when 2 people come together, there's no 2 people at the exact same level of spiritual frequency. So one's always going to be somewhat higher than another. One person has to be higher in that regard. And when I say frequency, I mean their understanding of life and the reality of our existence. And what happens is the person who is at a lower level will start being raised by the sheer energy interaction. It's like opening the door, the hot going towards the cold during the hot, towards the hot. But by the same token, the more spiritual person will be dragged down a bit, because some of that, you could say, the cold from the outside comes in. And that's why it's well known that, you know, all of the spiritual masters and this and that, they have to have periods of solitude and getting away from people because they have to recharge. And so,
Nice.
yeah, so we want to be people, we want to raise ourselves to being people that are the ones who are helping to lift others around us. And it can be no more than just our presence. We can say things, we can teach people stuff, we can do things and be an example, but just our presence actually has that effect. We also have to understand that if we do too much of that and without enough of our own recharging, then eventually we can actually just end up, before you know it, you're just living a normal life with normal people, having all the same physical and mental and emotional and financial problems. And it's because you didn't stick to and keep yourself on that higher level. So I think I like to think that we don't really have a it's an honor or a just something that we get to do to help other people, but it's not a responsibility. Our responsibility is to our own consciousness, to raise our own consciousness. And in that, we automatically raise the whole world because it could be no other way. But when it comes to helping individuals, raising them, we can do that if that is what we're called to do, if that's what feels right. But I like people who are becoming more spiritually minded and they get frustrated that their friends and their family don't understand. I like them to know they're not your responsibility. You raise yourself up, you'll become an example. You're helping them even just by nothing other than your energy and that they know you and interact with you. Even if it's imperceptible on the surface of their lives, you're helping them. And if you can do more than that, if you can encourage people, talk to them, teach them, recommend a book, that's all well and good. You get to do that, but you don't have to do that. Your first responsibility is to your own consciousness, and that's where you can do the most good for the world at large, in your own being.
Very wise words. And right there, that will just relieve some stress by just doing that, because so many people stress out and they try and I gotta say awaken, their family and friends, like try and drop that knowledge. And some people don't understand, and you just can't stress about that. Some people won't get it and it's okay,
Right. And it's not just spiritual matters either. It could be what's going on the world stage, like the coronavirus, what's real, what's not real about all of this. It could be about health and diet. People routinely who are into health and diet and they learn something they think is helpful and they try to share it with their family, but nobody's interested because everybody already thinks they know, and they don't want to, especially part of it is they don't want to think they've been doing something wrong all these years, right? They take it personally, an ego thing.
Very
Of
true.
course, yeah, and of course it's same with spirituality, that they're not ready to say, oh wow, you found a better way for me to be healthy, or you found a way for me to be more spiritual. It's working for you. Oh great, what is it? No, they're like, oh okay, well have fun, but don't bother me with that because I got my own thing going.
Yeah, some people don't want to hear that they've been lied to their whole lives,
Right.
They're like, that's not possible. Okay, well, believe
Right.
what you want.
Yeah. 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 I had someone one time, a friend told me that the family member, she was trying to tell them about the politicians and different things, medical, modern medicine. And, well, they wouldn't do anything to hurt us. Like they're there to protect us and to help us. There's whatever you're saying is crazy. They wouldn't, and that just shows the level of naivety, really, just how naive and gullible people are. But there's a lot of subtle psychological forces in play that it's hard to really, it's almost a new paradigm to think that, modern medicine, for instance, doesn't have all the answers. Like people run for surgery and in the New Normal book, I talk about a doctor who's a cancer doctor, and he told more than 500 people that they had cancer and gave, I don't know if you heard the story, and gave them treatments, chemo and radiation or whatever, and they did not have cancer.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was over 500 people. And why did he do it? To make more money, to give them the treatments. And he destroyed, people's lives. And so that's
Oh
why,
my God.
yeah, so I use that as an example in the new normal because I want people to know that you need to get a second opinion. Number one. Number two, modern mainstream medicine is not the only way of healing. And in fact, we could argue that most of it is not actually healing. It's suppressing symptoms and hurting us further, weakening our immune system. But then I brought it into this present situation of the coronavirus worldwide pandemic, or whatever you want to call it, that you want a second opinion on that too. Just like and I say, okay, this doctor, said they had cancer and they didn't. A second opinion would have saved them from all the suffering in those treatments, but not even to have the thought to say, oh, maybe this guy's lying to me. I better get a second opinion. Maybe he misdiagnosed, or maybe the treatment he's offering or suggesting is not the best. I mean, in a life and death situation like that, you want a second opinion. And I think
Hmm.
it's the same with economic matters, spiritual matters. That's what people get sucked into a cult. They stop looking for second opinions. They just believe this is it, the highest of the high, the all of the all, God incarnate, literally sometimes. I don't need to seek any further. Everyone else is wrong. And we're, this 23 people are right. We're right. And everyone else is wrong. I think that we always need to seek further and wider for information, and then make up our own minds. Because if we're only getting opinions from one or two little sources, then that's not our thoughts.
Hmm.
That's their thoughts that we've adopted as our own, and said, yeah, here's what I believe. Everything this guy over here said, as opposed to, listen, I've listened to 100 people. I've read 20 books. I've watched, 50 YouTube videos or whatever. And here's what all these people say. And after hearing all of this diverse opinions, here's the opinion I've come up with. Like, my opinion.
Hmm.
Not, I just took it from one person and, oh yeah, what he said,
Many people just copy and paste and repeat what they hear,
Right.
and instead of doing their own research and giving their own opinion,
Exactly.
which is funny because a lot of times when people do that and you ask them more questions, they can't answer because it's not their opinion, it's just something they heard. That's when they start getting defensive. Sometimes I've experienced anyway.
Right.
Like they just hear somebody say something on TV and they're like, oh, I believe that too. And
Right.
you start asking them more questions and they get mad at you. It's like,
Right.
I'm just trying to understand.
Right. Yeah. No, people don't want their beliefs questioned, or challenged, because it makes them very uncomfortable, and they feel like they have to defend themselves, like it becomes a battle of wills, or and that's the exact opposite of having an open mind, saying, all right, well, here's what I believe, but what do you believe? I'm willing to hear your opinion. It's when I'm afraid to hear your opinion, that's when you know that I am really not all that sure about what I believe, but I really want to believe it, and therefore I don't want to have it challenged, and therefore I don't want to talk about this because I already know what's true, and you're wrong. And that's where a lot of people are on a lot of different subjects.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
Wow, man. Well, you're a very wise man. Very spiritual. I love it. Very positive vibes.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's what I do. So hopefully I'm doing some of it okay.
Oh,
And
for sure. And very good advice. You know what you're talking about. And hope people listening are, paying attention right now.
yeah, I think they are. I think people should, this isn't a time in our history to be comfortable, or to think that we know, or to just listen to the powers that be about what's going on. And or to think that to be stable in any, this is a time of upheaval right now, and so it should be a time of upheaval personally as well, within our own lives, to just look at everything, how I've been living my life, what have my beliefs been, what do I believe spiritually, and then just put all of that under a microscope and say, maybe there's room for improvement. Not I've been wrong or I'm stupid or anything, but just maybe I can modify, maybe I can improve, maybe I can grow in this situation. And I think this is a great opportunity for growth. And growth is never comfortable. There's always pain involved, right? You go to the gym, you lift a weight and it hurts, but then you end up with more strength and a larger muscle. It's the same thing. We got to go through the pain to get the gain. And now a lot of it's being thrust upon us. Like we're not choosing the time, but we can choose our response to what's going on. And I think part of it should be a lot of reflection and introspection right now.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, just thinking, just right there, that will help so many people, because there's a lot of stress going on right now, and it's tough times, and
Right.
but we
Yeah.
got to move on. We got to move forward, got to keep going, got to keep living.
Right. Right. This can all lead to us individually being stronger and more aware and more sane, really, more practical, and just more in touch with the reality of the environment that we're finding ourselves in and how to navigate that, not just for appearances for today, but for reality and practicality for the long term. Otherwise, we're going to pay the price for not having done that. And that could be you end up homeless because you didn't prepare financially or overextended yourself. We talked about that. It could be something as simple as that. It's not even really a spiritual thing, just practical, mundane, physical life things. But when you bring the spiritual angle in with it as well, the spiritual introspection, this is a wonderful opportunity for a lot of growth and a lot of benefit to all of us that step up and meet this challenge.
Got to think above that consumerism mindset,
Right.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks very much for coming on. I appreciate it. And yeah, man. So where can people find your books again? Amazon or
Right.
a website?
All my books are on Amazon in print and Kindle editions right now. And as I said, there are the New Normal and some other books are free on Kindle, so check those out. But the best thing for people to do is to go to my website, and it's jamesgoijr.com. So that's my name, jamesgoijr.com. And there they can subscribe to my free monthly Mind, Power, and Money e-zine. And they'll also get a free PDF copy of my book, Attract Money Now, which I think is, Attract Money Forever. Attract Money Now is somebody else's book, but Attract Money Forever. And
Nice.
What's the best thing to do? Just sign up for that e-zine, and this way you can stay plugged in and get that message from me every month. The last 4 have been about the coronavirus, and probably for the foreseeable future, they're going to be. And so I just encourage people to check that out at my website.
Awesome, man. And that's very cool that, your book's also available for free. Some of them, just dropping free knowledge, that right there, that's amazing.
Right. Yeah, people should take advantage of that and see what works for them, what they resonate with.
For sure. I'll check it out, man. I got Kindle, so that's awesome. Cool. Right there.
Great.
And thanks again. Thank you very much for coming on.
Certainly. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yep. You have a good one.
All right. You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.